ProgressiveRadioNetwork.com, your number one source for everything progressive.
Hi, I'm Richard Gale, the executive producer for the Progressive Radio Network and the Gary Null Show. I invite you to join Gary for a special 2-hour commentary broadcast this Monday, September 26th at 7 p.m., at which time you will hear the witnesses of 8 remarkable individuals who will submit their evidence to refute the official 911 Commission's findings. So tune in to the Gary Null Show for his special 2-hour program to deconstruct 911 this Monday at 7 p.m., only here on the Progressive Radio Network. Your home to hear conversations that matter, to inspire change that makes a difference.
October 6th, 2011.
Nobody else can do this for. No document can do this for.
It is you, the people, who are our true heroes.
I'm only a child, yet I know we are all in this together. And
we are the last thin line of defense.
Our moment has come.
The people need to rule.
We will unite to demand an end to a system
that puts profits and warfare over the welfare of people and the environment.
We will make these demands heard.
I'm going to Washington, D.C. on October 6th.
I will be in Washington, D.C. in Freedom Plaza.
On October 6th.
October 6th.
Revolution.
We're not leaving. However many days, however many weeks.
Because our government has ceased to work for the people.
The political process is broken.
Once you wake up, it's impossible not to take action.
October2011.org.
And now it's your turn. Go to October2011.org and then share this with all of your friends.
Because I will not be silenced.
We will be heard.
Please join us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Len Saputo.
And I'm registered nurse Vicki Saputo. We're proud to announce that the Progressive Radio Network will be bringing you our live call-in talk show, Prescriptions for Health, every Monday afternoon starting June the 6th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Mark your calendars and save up your questions so you can ask us about possible strategies for your health problems, whether mainstream or complementary and alternative.
We also invite your questions and comments about any area of healthcare, including politics, economics, ethics, philosophy, and styles of healthcare.
So remember to tune in every Monday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to the Progressive Radio Network's Prescriptions for Health show.
Hello! This is Deborah Wolf, best-selling author and award-winning radio host of Animal Magnet Pet Radio. You can listen live to me every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern for the best pet radio in America, Canada, and beyond. Hard-hitting pet issues, animal news, training tips, tricks, games, and quirky pet trivia, plus the A-list pet guests each week. Or listen anytime to past shows at ProgressiveRadioNetwork.com. Listen to this show so you can be good to your animals.
High Five Fridays on the Progressive Radio Network. Every Friday night till midnight, High Five Fridays will kick off with deep cuts from the Brooklyn Jazz Underground at 6 p.m. and will feature jazz, folk,
A case of you, darling, and I would still be on my feet. Oh, I would still be on my feet.
rock,
Girl, you have to make a medicine.
and more to get you ready for your weekend. The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you are coming with us. The most news anywhere on the internet. ProgressiveRadioNetwork.com, your number one source for everything progressive.
Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today on A Better World here on Progressive Radio Network, where we have been for a number of years now, and will be continuing because the issues of the day continue to grow in their fervor and their strength and their magnitude, and the importance for progressive thinkers on the air speaking the truth, sometimes diplomatically, sometimes not so much, about what is going on this planet, in our country, in our society. And today we are going to be opening up the phones in a little while, not at first, to you, the audience, so you can call in and share your thoughts with us. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And we have so many things to weigh in on these days. And the subjects at hand, for those of you who received the newsletter, you would already know. So if you do not yet get the newsletter, certainly go to www.abetterworld.net and sign up for it. It's only once a week, and we describe what will be on the TV show, on the radio show, and there's always a blog there as well, describing some important issues for us all to reflect on with our depth of consciousness, our open heart, and to be honest with ourselves and others about what it is we're really experiencing these days, because the world is clearly, my friends, going through transformation, and we can either sit on the sidelines or we can be part of it. And it's really a very exciting and trying time. Let's be honest. None of it is easy, and yet when we pay attention authentically to what's really going on, to the energy swirling about us, then there's a lot of joy to be had and a lot of service to give. And that's our game here at A Better World, as you all know. So thanks so much again for joining us. Today we are going to speak about a few subjects. One, to start with, and I have invited a good friend and colleague on to join me for a little bit at the beginning of this show, Kurt Johnson, to talk about the Wall Street demonstrations, what's actually going on the ground, and what's behind it. What is the general theme? What is the general consensus? What is the feeling tone of what's going on? What do we want out of this demonstration, which is now in its second week and is being ignored by mainstream media? I doubt if you've heard about it on CNN, except for maybe most briefly, any of the other newspapers, Fox News and other TV or radio shows for that matter. But on PRN you will, on Pacifica Radio you will hear about it, and you'll be hearing about it on this show. We're also going to go back to a subject we've been covering for the past couple of weeks because it is also so central to our own health and well-being, and that's the subject of the FDA in its attempts to subvert existing legislation which protects our right and access to nutritional supplements. And that should be a no-brainer, except for the people who are running the show. For them, this is yet another opportunity to profit. Now, they really give profit a bad name. Profit is just fine within certain guidelines, within some moderation. The next subject we'll be looking at, again, revisiting. I guess we have to keep doing it until we get our way, and we will be persistent, and are over time. And that's the subject of hydro-fracking. And today we'll also be speaking a bit about the Spectra pipeline, about which maybe many of you who don't even know about it, but you will today. I'll be going into that in depth in the latter part of the show. And with time allowed, we'll also go into some about banking, Glass-Steagall, and take another look again at 9/11. So stay tuned, enjoy. These are subjects that touch all of us in one way or another, and we will be inviting calls in for the second half of the show, so stay tuned and become part of the discussion and the solution. So on that note, I'd like to introduce to you my dear friend and colleague Kurt Johnson. We've been involved in a number of activities together over the course of the years past and present. And one of them is the Coalition for One Voice, which he was a real instrumental figure in helping to form. It's a coalition of many dozens upon dozens, actually, maybe even over 100 groups at this point in the general New York area who have a similar vision. And so that we are not all splintered and fractured and just doing our own thing, the coalition is about gathering and coalescing together so we can all be bringing our respective powers together, and visions and hearts for that matter, as well as minds, of course. So Kurt was very recently, in the last couple of days, on the scene of the Wall Street demonstrations and has been just sharing some tidbits with me recently, so interesting that I really wanted to invite him onto the show to speak directly to all of you, since you're not going to get this news elsewhere. Kurt, are you on the line?
I am. You can hear me okay, Mitchell?
I can, Kurt. I can. I'm very glad to have you on.
My pleasure.
Good. So tell us all, you were at the scene. You have this most interesting, very full-fledged background as a spiritual teacher, as a scientist. You've done work in business. You have such an interesting background. And now you find yourself in the midst of the Wall Street demonstrations. Where were you and what was it like?
Yeah, let me just give just a snip of background of how I ended up there.
Yeah, please.
As you just mentioned, this has been going on now into its 9th day. And if you go to Google and you Google Wall Street protests, you'll see worldwide there are 10 million hits on the international coverage of these demonstrations. And yet, really, until the violence on the 24th, there was barely any coverage in the American media, and pretty much the American media now is only tuning into it with regard to what happened on the 24th. Now, to get you then to how I ended up where I was on the 24th,
yes.
When I found out that for whatever reason the American media wasn't covering this, I set up a network of about 2,000 colleagues that are involved in not-for-profits and NGOs who really need to know what's going on, and they were misinformed. I was uninformed. So having set up that network, I was actually monitoring every day what was going on, and then when they planned the march on the 24th, I said, well, I better put my feet where my mouth is and get down there so I can actually have a feel for what's going on, because at least the American media isn't there. So I started right around noontime at what they're calling now Liberty Plaza, which is where the about 600 or 700 people as of last night are camped out and in this for the long haul. And actually they're the cause of Wall Street being totally barricaded up now. You can't get down. If you're a regular citizen now, you can't go down to Wall Street. It's all barricaded off by the police. You can only get within about 3 to 4 blocks of the stock exchange, and then you have to show an ID to show that you work there in order to get through. So anyway, the march started on the 24th and moved toward Union Square because there's no place to be on the sidewalks down around Wall Street because it's all barricaded off. So to have room...
Now, did they do that on purpose, Kurt, or is that a function of there just simply not being much room for people to gather?
Well, no, actually the original demonstrations on the 17th were allowed to go on in front of the stock exchange.
Right in front.
And these were very large. You can see this on alternative media. That was about 2,000 people, but it was not reported. And then when they wanted to stop that influx of demonstrators and regular citizens, and also whatever pedestrian problem it was having in letting people get to work, and also fearing larger demonstrations in the area, the NYPD, if you go down there, has it all barricaded off. You can't get there. It's the metal barricades like they use at parades that separate the sidewalk from the street.
Yes.
So on the 24th, then, probably around 3,000 people left the area of Liberty Plaza, started going toward Union Square, picked up an awful lot of people on the way. Now, here's one of the big disparities in the media.
Yes.
They were estimating that when they got to Union Square, there were somewhere between 5,000 or 9,000 people that were involved, whereas the media that's even covering it says hundreds. Now, here's the way to figure it. If they arrested 100 people, and they've acknowledged they arrested around between 80 and 100 people, if there were only 1,000 people, they would have had to arrest 1 out of every 8 people, and they certainly didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they arrested 1 out of 20, that's 2,000 people. 1 out of 30 is 3,000 people.
Sure.
Obviously, there were many more people there than the media that's trying to play it down. Now, here's what happened then. And I'll just be really honest here, because it's the same NYPD, and it's the same fire department that all of us were so proud of on 9/11, and we have to keep this in mind.
Yes.
But there was, I'll be honest, just as a citizen, and I've written to the mayor, I've written to the police commissioner, I'll tell you all how to do that. There was no violence at all until the police started getting rough and particularly started corralling people in these orange nets. And then if you go to Google...
Especially women, if I recall.
I'm sorry?
Especially, it seemed like some young women they
That's
were
what
corralling.
I was just going to. That video has over 500,000 hits now at YouTube, and it has 1,500,000 hits at Google. So, and there's a version that The Atlantic put out today by James Fellows, who was Clinton's speechwriter. If you go to The Atlantic's website, there's a version which is slow-mo that shows exactly what happened step by step, and that was only one of several incidents, but that's when there was this group of young women who were standing in a net that had been set up by the police so they couldn't move, and then this white-collar officer, who they've now identified, came over and just pepper sprayed all of them, just put them on the ground with pepper spray. And you can even see from the video that the blue-collar cops are like, whoa, what is this? So I'll be really honest,
yes.
The police got out of hand. The Atlantic today even agreed with that. That's all over the media. It's a significant embarrassment to the United States because of the positions that we took on Libya, Syria, Egypt, and Iran. But I think, it doesn't take much imagination to know why the corporate-owned media, very hard for them to know what to do here. On CNN today, the only thing is a link that they have at their website under the U.S. section where it says Wall Street protests escalate into melee. But if you go there, there's nothing from CNN. What it is a blog page with what people say they saw, and CNN is not even taking a position. I think, to be honest, Mitchell, this is extremely difficult. The idea that there might be some type of organized voicing of what 80% of the people in this country really feel about the financial injustices over the last year or so in this country, that this really has them perplexed, if not worried. And this is why they don't quite know what to do with it yet. And It's basically alternative media or international media that are going to get you to the coverage. So, that's a long answer to your question, but
no, it's excellent.
I have more things that you want to ask me about.
Yes, excellent. No, that's very, very useful. I'd like to just come back around to the actual confrontations that you saw first on a literal level, Kurt, and then expand outward to looking at this whole blackout issue by the media and what it means to be a corporately owned media media venue and having a vested interest in keeping the popular voice down. But first, just in respect to those young women who were caged, if you will, in that orange sheeting, what do you know, and where specifically was this in the city that happened?
Well, you can look at the video. These things were happening, and I may not have the coordinates exactly right, but when Union Square filled up, which was rather spontaneous, and then the police decided to they use these orange nets to try to push people where they want them to go. if I'm not mistaken, and this is, I think, verified in the media, they tried to disperse the crowd with these nets by pushing them down 12th Street. The crowd really didn't know where to go. This is a lot of people. So if you actually see that video, these girls are actually following the police's directions. There's really nowhere they can go. They're surrounded by this orange net.
Yes.
But then this other officer comes over and
pepper sprayed.
And pepper sprays them. But there's another picture out there that I think is iconic, and that's the one where the Hispanic demonstrator who's fallen to the ground, he's been taken down by 3 policemen on top of an American flag. One policeman has his knee right in the guy's neck. And this picture now is all over the international media of the 3 New York policemen, one with his knee on the neck of this Hispanic guy who's lying on an American flag. That's the type of thing that, again, not to raise emotion in that, but those are the things that become iconic.
Yes.
In the sense of calling attention to this.
You bet.
Now,
it's important.
I think the other thing that really bothered a lot of us was the Yahoo blackout. Yahoo, as you'll see, admitted that it blocked emails about these events for 3 days by using a crawler that identified keywords. And if you tried to email anybody about what was going on, your email was blocked. Now, they admitted that, and they stopped it after 3 days. Now, that also then happened on the 24th with AOL. My emails to people about what was going on through AOL for a few hours were receivable but not openable. And that was also, that astonished a lot of us. In fact, where is MSNBC? Where is CNN? I think that legitimately astonishes anybody who would consider that they're a middle-of-the-roader, basic American citizen trying to handle voicing things in some type of a reasonable way. Let me just mention, anybody who's listening, if you want to write to the mayor, it's very easy. Just Google Contact Mayor of New York City, and you'll have an email link where you can send in your opinion. And you can also Google Contact Police Corruption in New York, and there's an email where you can tell people where you think New York NYPD has misbehaved. So just keep that in mind.
Fabulous. That's very helpful. It's very interesting because last night, Kurt, on 60 Minutes, there was a segment with Ray Kelly, and they were discussing at great depth the surveillance systems that are now in place for anti-terrorist operations. And this money has been gathered, literally hundreds of millions. I think it's actually topped over $1 billion altogether in new equipment and how they have fortified themselves, even against planes that could possibly fly overhead with terrorist intentions. And I don't know. There's something odd about the timing here of that show just last night, absolutely in the middle of this 10 or so day stretch of so much activity down on Wall Street, which is challenging the status quo banking industry more heavily than any other time since the debacle really began to unravel in September of 2008.
Well, I think you're precisely right, and I think what people are concerned about in the wider not-for-profit NGO community is that the definition of a terrorist is completely subjective and up to what the government decides. So, for instance, if we wanted to get paranoid enough or concerned enough that we think that there is a desire not to have Americans have full free speech or full right of assembly, it'd be extremely easy for any civic authority, who can define that, to have that work against ordinary American citizens. Now, I was going to say the group that's doing the organizing here, I had a friend who was there all day yesterday listening in, and he said they're very responsible, they're very sane, and that they had a group of volunteer lawyers there who were really talking about how to minimize confrontation and also how to make sure that peaceful intentions on their part are known by everybody. But the reason I mention it is even before the march on the 24th, they told people that are like, for instance, my age, because I'm a senior, anybody with health issues, if you want to march, the problem is that if the NYPD didn't follow the rules, and they might not follow the rules, they could hold you up to 72 hours without access to anything. And so if you needed medications or something like that, or you have issues, you have to be a little bit concerned about getting corralled and arrested, because you might not actually have access to the outside world if they're not playing by the rules. But I think, overall, I think the big concern of the not-for-profit community is how to bring the discussion more back to the middle road. How, if, for instance, this escalates and there's more polarization, how do community organizations, not-for-profits, groups like yourselves, groups like the coalitions I'm a part of, how do we create forums that allow sides to be heard and also talk to each other, particularly with conflict resolution people and things like that?
Yes.
And can tone down the escalation and the polarization. If you read the blogs that are out there today, I've been following them, the blogs are unbelievably polarized. You've got people who want to do severe violence, either to the rich or to the demonstrators or to the hippies, it gets extremely polarized. So there's an ethical responsibility, especially those of us who are clergy, and the other clergy I think need to think about this. There's a long-term ethical responsibility, if this would escalate, on how we would create venues that allow for some type of moderation and finding a middle road.
Yes, I understand. That is always the desire, and violence is really never an answer. However, that is interestingly what catches the interest of the news organizations, and that's what raises the ire of the other side. And I don't know, it might even be the stimulus that brings them to the table. I don't know. But I am in full accord and agreement with the idea of finding representatives from all sides of the table, round table that is, and sitting down and having proper conversations. What ultimately we're talking about is the redistribution of wealth. Let's be honest about it, Kurt. And this is a subject that nobody who has so much really wants to sit down to discuss. And that's why this subject, since 2008, has been so well ignored, even by the White House, and the Justice Department, who refuses, apparently, to criminalize the actions of the Wall Street banking system, even though they have put underwater literally millions of people who are now homeless because of the foreclosure debacle, the subprime mortgage. So this is not an easy subject. This is an incredibly thorny subject, and I think that's why it's being expressed the way it is right now.
I totally agree, because the phenomenon is that what these people are thinking, the demonstrators, is actually probably what 80 to 90% of Americans are thinking.
Correct.
But there's been no way that this could get expressed. So if there becomes a way for this to get expressed, then it's really important that it be tried to hold within some type of moderation and dialogue, as opposed to just polarization, violence. Now, you said it. I mean, back in the 60s, they used to say you can't lead unless you bleed.
Yes.
And it appears that, again, the major media, though you got 10 million hits at Google now, but not until there was violence, and that's really sad.
Yeah, I think Jesus said it even before we said it in the 60s.
No, you're right.
Yeah, but anyway, listen, Kurt, final words. Will you please share with us the website about the Wall Street demonstrations that people can access to learn really, like, moment to moment what's going on?
Yeah, it's real easy to find. It's occupywallstreet.org, but with street just spelled S-T. So occupywallst.org. And there's an update of news. And then what's really great there's a live stream of all alternative media, so that, for instance, during the Union Square thing, there were 8,000 people watching by live stream until the equipment got confiscated by the authorities.
Oh, my.
They were up and running within another hour from another site. So that live stream has a lot of people tuning in to to news that otherwise isn't covered.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for weighing in for us today on A Better World. Really appreciate your going there and putting your feet where your mouth was, and being able to report to us so directly. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mitchell, for everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend, and we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It's Kurt Johnson, who is just really an exceptional human being. I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing him for a number of years now, and attend monthly what we call lateral satsang, where we all get together and sit in meditation together in a lateral kind of way, and it's really very beautiful. And then we have a talking stick ceremony after that, so we can share from the depths of our sense of things. So, this is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. We're airing live on Progressive Radio Network, as we do every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, you can watch A Better World TV every Tuesday night at 10:30 at this point, Eastern Standard Time as well. You can watch it in Manhattan on television or online at www.abetterworld.net, where it says "Watch Here." And we always have interesting shows. This week will be actually a memoriam for Dr. Stephen Angel, who is a dear friend, chiropractor, sound healer. Many of us knew him in New York, who passed on Yom Kippur. He was a rather somewhat religious Jewish, I would say more like a Kabbalist, died on Yom Kippur, September 22nd, 2007. So it was just, now that we're around the Jewish holidays, time to honor Steve. So any of you who know him, this would be a great time to hang out with him on my show. All right, so we have other important subjects to get to, and following this show will be Gary Null's 3-hour special dissecting, deconstructing 9/11. It's a show you do not want to miss. You never want to miss Gary Null anyway, even if he's just talking about, nuts and berries. But if he's going to be talking about 9/11, stay tuned, that's for sure. So I want to open up a subject that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks on A Better World. Many of you who have been listening in regularly know that we had just 2 weeks ago Jim Turner of Citizens.org. It's a Washington, D.C. based law firm that has essentially been doing battle with the FDA for decades. And he formed Citizens.org to step it up and include all of us in the action, because we are the action. He, as a lawyer, as a founder of Citizens.org, can move forward only with our support. Therefore, if you go to our website, abetterworld.net, under Participatory Democracy, you will be able to find the phone number and the contact information to reach your representatives. And we must, and I have, called and written about the FDA's attempt to subvert standing legislation that protects our right, our access to the nutritional supplements of our choice, without any legal body, governmental agency in our way. We do live in a free country, don't we? Or do we? It is truly up to us. As Thomas Jefferson said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. True words, True words. And so, yes, I know we are all very busy. The last thing we want to do is also run our country and tell them what to do. But if we don't, they'll do what they want, and they do what they do based on corporate donations. It's a very simple program, and it's unethical. It's probably largely illegal, but because they control the enforcers, they do as they please, and we cannot But that's not true. We can. So again, last week we had on Daryl Rogers of the Alliance for Natural Health, who also spoke to us about the details. There was some problem with the video streaming on that show, but it is audio streamed, and you can get it on the PRN site or ours, and tune in here and learn about the details, because just imagine a world without our access to our nutritional supplements. It's insane. The soil has been essentially contaminated. So the food that comes from most sources has very little, if any, literally, nutritional value. So where do we get our nutrition? Honestly, we get a large portion of them, unfortunately, from capsules, from drinks, from supplements. It's what has happened in the 21st century. It's been since 1933 that the United States Department of Agriculture declared the soil depleted of minerals. 1933. Here we are, all of these years later, and we're still eating from that soil, even further contaminated by the agribusiness chemicals, pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides. Is that what you want to feed to your children? There's no nutrition. Empty calories, man. So, we're in this awkward position of relying upon our nutritional supplementation. On the more positive side of supplementation is that we have learned so much about nutrition, human nutrition, and what the body needs and what the body can thrive on, so we can reach something called optimal health. So from that point of view, having concentrated amounts of certain nutrients that we can take at specified times in a given day can really nourish us even more, because science keeps advancing our knowledge. We know a whole lot more than even Adele Davis did today, based on nutritional research which is taking place. If nutritional research were to be even just 10% of ordinary medical education, we would have a different kind of practice of medicine in this country, and we would have doctors rallying around the American Nutrition Association a whole lot more than around the American Medical Association, because real scientists, real doctors, I will dare say as well, know that nutrition is the real key. So is sleep, so is stress management, so is exercise, and happiness. Oh, yes, happiness. These are the true keys to health, well-being, and longevity. Not, and never will be, the pharmaceutical industry's products. So, with that said, I engage you, please, even implore thee, to go to our website, abetterworld.net, and look around until you find. In fact, I think it's actually on the home page. Call to action, it says. We're involved in something I refer to as sacred stewardship. That means we take our heart, mind, and soul and put it on the line, my friends, in order to be actively engaged in creating a better world, in protecting Mother Earth, our first step, and all of the bounty that she brings forward. She is our true lifeblood and oxygen, literally. And then all other sentient life, including human beings, our brothers and sisters. And we need to be as connected on the level of soul as possible. Otherwise, we'll get lost in our minds and we'll get confused. We need to have it rooted and anchored, which is why I call it sacred stewardship. It needs to be as deep as the soul from which our actions spring. So think about that as I continue on with the other points I want to make for today's show as the time is passing. Another subject we've talked about at some length on this show is hydro-fracking. Hydro-fracking has actually no role necessary any longer in these United States of America. What a grand statement, but it is true. It's being used in at least 34 states right now, according to Josh Fox's Gasland, which was nominated for Best Documentary of the Year this last year for the Academy Awards. No, it did not win. Inside Job won. And Inside Job won because it's the inside job that creates the problem with the fracking. So it would make sense then for Gasland to win next year. But it is all part and parcel of the same sick headset, which is anything for money. And that ain't right, folks. It ain't right. You don't do anything for money. You don't put human life second to making money, or the air or the water that everyone partakes of. Yes, there will be some transition from fossil fuels into renewable energies, but that transition is already in place with our reliance essentially on oil, and as they say, it's already peaked, and now we're poking it. So with that said, fracking has been proven to contaminate the water tables everywhere it's done, and others say, including the New York Times, which isn't known for these kinds of phrases, that the corporations who are promoting, the natural gas companies promoting the high returns on fracking, are actually somewhat closer to Ponzi schemes. The kinds of returns they're claiming are not possible, according to, I believe it was an article in the New York Times and elsewhere. I wrote a newsletter about this a couple of months back, and I referenced it in a Huffington Post article that I also wrote. And you can go to my website in order to access the specifics on that. So not only are we dealing with something akin to a Ponzi scheme, not only does it not yield the money they claim it does, but it is utterly, completely destroying our environment. It will pollute the New York City watershed. Bloomberg speaks lightly about it. He says he doesn't want it to happen, but yet he and Governor Cuomo, at least on the East Coast, for those of you who live out here, are still moving right along, and it's still in the discussion phase, but the deals are already being cut. I am sure money is already changing hands, and it is up to us, again, we the people, like we don't have enough on our plate, to challenge this as much and as fast as possible. Now, the fracking issue dovetails with another very important issue. Oh my God, I'm getting exhausted. How many issues can a man deal with in a given day? Well, unfortunately, we are faced with many. We have what's going on Wall Street. We have what's going on with fracking. We have what's going on with the FDA. We have several wars that continue to rage around the world in our name. Innocent civilians, people being killed, mothers, children, because of American aggression. No wonder people feel the way they do about us across the world. We have the Palestinian issue, where the Israelis have so heavily challenged the Palestinians by building settlements all over what was their land. This is just all outrageous and needs a peaceful, quieted, respectful mind to come into contact with the adversaries in each of these situations to find common ground. And there is common ground, and we will find it. So I've got to get you engaged in the subject of the Spectra pipeline, because the commentary period ends October 31st. Let me read this to you. It's a little gobbledygook, but stick with me as best you can. On September 9th, 2011, the staff of the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, also known as FERC, funny acronym, issued the draft environmental impact statement, The draft is called EIS. Everything's an acronym these days. You notice that? For the proposed New Jersey-New York expansion project. What's the acronym for that? And mailed it to resource and land management agencies, interested organizations, and individuals. Funny, I didn't get one, and I'm interested. The draft assesses the potential environmental effects of the construction and operation of the proposed New York-New Jersey project. That is of a 30-inch gas line going from New Jersey around Hoboken, Jersey City, into the West Village, into a heavily, intensely populated area. Any person wishing to comment on this draft may do so. The public comment deadline is October 31st. In addition to, or in lieu of, sending written comments, FERC staff invites you to attend one of the public comment meetings conducted in the project area, the specified target area, they should call it, scheduled as follows. Look, I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just telling you. Go to saneenergyproject.org. It'll also be on our website, saneenergyproject.org, and there you will find all the information. Monday, October 17th, that's in Staten Island, another one in Bayonne, another one in New Jersey, and in Greenwich Village on October 20th, West 11th Street. So go there for the information, saneenergyproject.org. Now, why is this important? Oh, as if it wasn't clear enough, as though you were not reading between the lines of what I was already saying. Listen up. You have until October 31st to help change New York's energy future. Now, believe me, it should also be said, because we have people listening from all over the country and even from different parts of the world. What happens in New York happens elsewhere. When we come to peace, there will be peace elsewhere. When we are marching in the streets, marching takes place elsewhere. Of course, this time we got our tip from Cairo, Tunisia, Yemen, Bahrain, and others. But oftentimes things begin in New York, which is why so many millions of people love living here. Or, if it didn't begin here, if it's picked up by New Yorkers who are otherwise fairly tough individuals, if that shell is penetrated and New Yorkers pick up a subject, watch out, folks. As they say, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So what we're talking about here, pertaining directly to New York, pertains actually to everywhere. It's the micro-macro relationship. We're dealing with morphogenetic fields. Nothing is separate. Not all is connected. So, with that said, New York City policies have a direct effect on fracking. Current policies seek to convert our buses, boilers, and power plants to methane. Methane is 18 times more dangerous as a greenhouse gas than CO2, by the way, my friends. And to supply all this extra gas via the massive and dangerous Spectra pipeline slated to enter Manhattan near the historic West Village. This is the final public comment period for this project. Now is the time to speak out against the Spectra pipeline and the conversion of our city to methane. We should shift energy policies away from fracking and toward renewables. It's fairly easy. I'm working on some projects behind the scenes. They are in motion. Things are happening. It won't be long before we have self-generating generators. Sounds nice. And the similar things such as that. Even solar on projects I'm working on will be outdated in the not too distant future, interestingly enough. But as a interim renewable technology, stick with it. Now, 10 reasons why the Spectra pipeline is a bad idea. The pipeline is an immediate threat to local residents, not only in the West Village, everywhere. Fear of an explosion from this 30-inch high-pressure pipeline or its underground storage vault is well placed. Last September, a faulty weld caused a smaller, lower-pressure pipeline to explode in low-density suburban San Bruno, California. The blast left a crater 4 stories deep, razed 38 homes, killed 8, and injured 51. Okay. The builder of this pipeline has a history of safety issues, cited in June 2011, just a few short months ago, for 17 inadequacies in its safety operations and procedures, such as pipeline monitoring, emergency plans, and welding procedures. An emergency shutdown of its Steckman Ridge, Pennsylvania compressor station released 1,629 pounds of lubricating oil and 6,460 pounds of methane onto farmland. If they could have caught that oil, they could have run their tractors for a couple of years. Received EPA's 7th highest penalty on record for discharging PCBs at 89 sites along a 9,000-mile pipeline. Experienced catastrophic failure of its underground storage reservoir in Moss Bluff, Texas, causing 2 explosions with flames as high as 1,000 feet. Fabricated the pipeline that exploded in Edison, New Jersey in 1994. And I'll tell you, I have 2 very close friends who went through hell with that. Their house was surrounded by was right near the explosion, and they had to run for their lives. I'm kidding you not. I know these people well, and they told me in depth about what that was like. And when I read this here in this pamphlet, it became utterly, completely clear to me how dangerous this proposal is. And Mayor Bloomberg, you should know, is for it. So that means Mayor Bloomberg, who is allowing the Wall Street demonstrators, guards, police, to be violent and provocative with ordinary folks who are opening their mouths according to the First Amendment. He is allowing violence to occur, and he is allowing fracking and promoting it, basically, and he is allowing this and supporting this pipeline to get built. So, as Kurt suggested, go to contact Mayor of New York City at Google and raise hell, i.e., tell him the truth of how you really feel about these measures. Here we are in the 21st century. Tesla lived 100 years ago and closer, died in, I think, the 50s. And there, in one person's opus, we had answers and solutions to all of this energy question. It would have been solved had we listened to what he really had to say and offer. But J.P. Morgan, way back, cut off the funding because he wasn't going to be making enough money from the work Tesla was doing to serve humanity. Hey, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm all for making money. You know who have been listening. I had Amory Lovin's ex-wife, Hunter Lovins, on, who wrote Climate Capitalism. This woman's a hard-running capitalist, man, cowboy, but she does things in a right way. Energy efficient, always sustainable, always renewable, always ethical, always humane to the workers on the inside and the customers on the outside. Be in harmony with the environment. Internally, the internal ecology and environment, and the outer ecology and the outer environment. That way you win. You get all bases covered. So, quickly, pipeline regulation and oversight is sorely inadequate. There are no inspectors. Where are the inspectors? Only 7% of pipelines are subject to mandatory inspection. Where they're mandatory, it's required only every 7 years. What is this? It's starting to sound biblical. There are only 88 auditors in the entire country. 88 auditors. Well, that's all we can do for today. I want to thank you all for listening. Go to www.abetterworld.net and tune in to our TV show tomorrow night, our radio show next week. And now I want to bring on Gary Null, who's going to be with you for the next 3 hours and talking about dissecting, deconstructing 9/11 in a way you probably haven't heard before. So thanks again. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Hey there, Gary. Sure, go ahead.
You have been listening to a progressive moment on the Progressive Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Richard Gale, the executive producer for the Progressive Radio Network and the Gary Null Show. I invite you to join Gary for a special 2-hour commentary broadcast this Monday, September 26th at 7 p.m., at which time you will hear the witnesses of 8 remarkable individuals who will submit their evidence to refute the official 911 Commission's findings. So tune in to the Gary Null Show for his special 2-hour program to deconstruct 911 this Monday at 7 p.m., only here on the Progressive Radio Network. Your home to hear conversations that matter, to inspire change that makes a difference.
October 6th, 2011.
Nobody else can do this for. No document can do this for.
It is you, the people, who are our true heroes.
I'm only a child, yet I know we are all in this together.
We are the last thin line of defense.
Our moment has come.
The people need to rule. We will unite
to demand an end to a system
that puts profits and warfare over the welfare of people and the environment.
We will make these demands heard.
I'm going to Washington, D.C. on October 6th.
I will be in Washington, D.C. in Freedom Plaza.
On October 6th.
October 6th.
Revolution.
We're not leaving. However many days, however many weeks.
Because our government has ceased to work for the people.
The political process is broken.
Once you wake up, it's impossible not to take action.
October2011.org.
And now it's your turn. Go to October2011.org and then share this with all of your friends.
Because I will not be silenced.
We will be heard.
Please join us.
A little of Ella, a touch of the blues, and a voice that mellowed in the Lesotho Mountains is just how Dee Phillips from Cosmopolitan Magazine describes C.D.'s voice. Tony Award nominee and winner of several top industry awards, C.D. is the first Southern African woman to win Britain's most coveted Ivor Novello Award for international achievement in musical theater. Join the continuing journey of C.D.'s music from her beginnings in the African mountain kingdom of Lesotho to the international stage with a roster of world-class stars including Sting, Elton John, and Madonna. Listen to C.D.'s Grace Notes live from New York City every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on the Progressive Radio Network.
Are you struggling to survive the Great Recession? Frustrated by everyone from the big banks to the politicians? You need the Freedom News Hour Surviving Meltdown. We bring common sense to the chaotic world of bank bailouts, financial crises, currency wars, precious metals, and government regulations.
Plus, we touch on many of the major news items of the day from a freedom-oriented perspective, and we aren't shy about our opinions.
I'm Walt Thiessen. I'm Jake Town.
And I'm Gene DiNardo.
It all happens Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. here on the Progressive Radio Network.